Hey guys, this is Eve. Thanks for tuning into my YouTube channel. This channel is dedicated to exploring various topics of the metaphysics and looking at them from a very occult standpoint. I don't know. I really want to talk about, the topic of false prophets. So if you will, it's really just a piggyback off of my last video. Okay. A lot of things I talk about is just topics in the New Age. And the conscious movement, whatever you want to call it, and how there's a lot of things we've been taught about that are just downright lies. And I really look at various spiritual doctrines, and I look at, just things that we've been taught, spiritual practices and things like that. So I can give you a more well-rounded perspective, and so you can rethink, basically, a lot of the things that you've been taught, okay? And really see and get some insight into what they really are about. Okay, so like I said, I want to talk a little bit about false prophets again, because I did a video on false prophets not too long ago. And then when I, after that video, I was watching TV one night, and Bishop T.D. Jakes, or I see a bishop, right? Bishop T.D. Jakes was on television. And so it's interesting because although, I'm not quote unquote a Christian, I'm a Jew. But although, I grew up Christian or what have you, so there's that competing cognition or whatever that's there, and just to kind of like, before I really get into the T.D. Jakes thing, I want everyone to know that the conscious movement was created by Rome. Rome actually is what you would consider to be Illuminati. If you look at the word Illuminati, you see ill. And so they actually condition you one way, okay, when you're born into this world, with the religions and all the other facets of the matrix, like education and, media and entertainment and stuff like that. They condition you with that. And then once you've reached a certain point, if you will, in your consciousness, then they illuminate you. And so when they illuminate you and they give you knowledge, and they send out false prophets and stuff like that to provide knowledge or what have you, it creates what you would call cognitive dissonance, or competing cognitions, basically. And so, at first you're thinking, oh, this is just wonderful information. And now I know that, Jesus, Jesus wouldn't have been Jesus's name when he would have walked the earth, because the letter J didn't exist during that time, when he would have been on the earth, whatever the case is. And so, when you start to share this information, because other people are programmed, into the matrix, they're designed to actually point you out as a divergent. And so you experience a lot of gang stalking, you experience a lot of, just pushback from people that you love and care about and that you associate with. Okay. And so, it's important to know that, coming into the system, if you don't have knowledge, the knowledge is not going to do anything for you. The knowledge is just going to basically, destroy you. Basically, that's what it's intended to do. So the purpose is to create this cognitive dissonance. And if you look at the metaphysics of the Bible, you will see, especially through the character of Jesus, that he has competing cognitions or cognitive dissonance. You'll see there's aspects of Jesus where he is very righteous and pious and religious and so forth, and very much about the law. And then you'll see a Jesus that's not about the law at all. And so you ask yourself, well, how can Jesus one time be this way, and then in another book, Jesus is another way? Because this is a representation of what happens to souls as they descend into the system by Rome. Rome designs the system to actually create two aspects of your personality, or give you what you would call a split personality. That's essentially what it is. Okay, so there's a subconscious aspect of you, and then there's a conscious aspect of you. And so the cross that they use to destroy you is to bring the subconscious and the conscious together. And so as that's happening, you're going through that process or what have you. It's a very painful process. Believe me, I know. So when it comes to, Bishop T.D. Jakes or what have you, I grew up listening to T.D. Jakes, and, my mother, my first earthly master, she really was a big T.D. Jakes person. And I believe really my ex-husband too, when I got married, I was still Christian when I was married. And my ex-husband, we would go to church together, we would watch television, so we would watch TD Jakes. And I always thought that out of all the preachers that he was one to not be so, I guess what you would say, I don't know, Roman, I don't know. Not be one that's, going to use doctrine or whatever to intentionally harm other people. But what I saw was actually quite disgusting. So, in the book of Esau, Jacob and Esau, this is the book that he was talking about. He was glorifying Jacob. Okay, in this particular, it's not the book actually. The story of Jacob and Esau is found in Genesis, but looking at the story within the book of Genesis, he was glorifying Jacob. And so, just to kind of make a long story short, whatever the case is, in terms of the story of Esau and Jacob, Esau and Jacob are twins. Okay, they're twin boys. And so they were born from a mother who really was thought to be barren, but there's some miracle that happens, and I guess she's blessed by the Lord, and so she's able to have twins, right? And so Rebecca's the mother and Isaac is the father. And so it said the Lord came to Rebecca came to Rebecca and said, hey, there's going to be two competing people basically in your womb. So this really is a representation symbolically of the conscious and the unconscious, or the ego and the higher self, whatever you want to call it, the astral self and whatever. So God and the devil, whatever. So, but they're twins, okay? And this is an allegory. And allegories aren't made to be taken seriously, or literally, I should say. But, Esau and Jacob, they represent the struggle between black and white, or what you would call Jews and Gentiles. And so Esau was described in a way where you would believe that he's black, and Jacob was described in a way where you would believe that he's white. So it's a struggle between Jew and Gentile, okay? And so basically Jews are black people. I know, even the Bible tells you, those who say they're Jews are not, but they're synagogues of Satan. And so the people that we've been told are Jews are not Jews. Okay, Jews are melanated people. And so the more you become reincarnated in the system, you get pressed out by the system. You lose your melanin until you become a master race of blonde hair and blue eyes. So you don't really have any melanin. You don't have a soul. You're soulless at that point. Okay, and so, and I know people may say, oh, that's insensitive or whatever the case is, but in terms of, looking at the matrix, because of course they're not going to tell you this information. They want you to believe that we all bleed red and it's kumbaya, whatever the case is. But I mean, things that were related to soul, right, are related to black people. Black people have, ethnic food or whatever for blacks are considered soul food, right? Or music for blacks are considered soul music. Or what is it? Blacks and black men and women are called soul sisters and soul brothers, and you got soul. So they're trying to indirectly tell you subliminally that the darker you are, the more melanin you have, the more soul you have. So the more that you get reincarnated, the less soul you have until you become a master race. And a master race is a race of people who are governed by their five senses, which is why the five-pointed star is so integral to the matrix system. A five-sense person, not a six-pointed star, but a five-pointed star person is someone who can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear, and they are only governed by what they can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear. They do not they only walk by sight. They have no insight. That's why you've heard of the term dumb blonde. Where did that come from? It's a dumb blonde. They're telling you that by the time you don't have any melanin, you are dumb. You are stupid. You have no intelligence beyond this realm. Okay? So that's just a little bit of occult, esoteric information that's probably going to mess with your ego, especially when it comes to race. But, I'm above the ego, and the ego cares about race, whereas the higher self does not give a flip about race. It's so beyond that. So if you're at that point, you can turn the video off right now because you're not ready for what you would call esoteric information. Okay? You're about struggling and choosing sides and being judgmental, which is fine. But judgment is the lowest taxonomy of knowledge. Okay. So we're all about the whys and the hows here on this channel, which is occult information. All right. And reaching higher taxonomies of knowledge. So in this, particular situation where there's a struggle between Esau and Jacob, Jacob, is considered to be a representation of white people, whereas Esau is a representation of black people. And like I said, the way that they're described, you can kind of tell, where the story is going. And so Rebecca actually prefers her Jacob, whereas Isaac prefers Esau. And so Esau was said to be like a nature person, right? Hunting and that type of thing and being outside, whereas Jacob was more about, being inside, what have you, and tending to the house and the sheep and that type of thing. And so, they were just two different types of people, And so, in the story it talks about how when they were born, how Jacob was, holding on to Esau's heel. And this is very significant here because, and I'm going to get to TD Jakes in just a second. Just kind of stay with me, guys, because I want to give some background information about this story from an insightful viewpoint before I actually, tell you about what TD Jakes has done, because it's quite disgusting. So, in the story, it talks about how Jacob actually is on, grabs the heel of Esau. And so this is really an allusion, really, in the text to Hercules, and how Hercules was actually killed by his Achilles heel, by the mortal aspect of himself. So all of him was a god except for his heel. And so mortal means death. It means the natural aspect of a human being. And so we'll see in the story in Esau and Jacob how Jacob takes advantage of Esau by his mortality, by the physical aspect of himself. And so since he knows that Esau has a physical aspect of himself that has to be gratified and nurtured, he takes advantage of it and steals Esau's birthright. And so, when Esau comes in one day from a hard day's work, right? You could tell that he was working hard and he was faint, he was tired, and he wanted to eat. So after you've worked all day, don't you want to eat? Or not only do you want to eat, but don't you need to? Right? Okay. Well, the body needs things like food and water and, whatever else, that human beings need. And so Jacob knew this and actually took advantage of this. And so he actually asked Esau to sell out his birthright. And so Esau was like, well, you know what? I'm famished. Basically, I'm faint. I'm about to die of starvation, basically. So he sells his birthright to Jacob. And the mother, Rebecca, preferring Jacob, she dresses Jacob up like Esau to pass him off as Esau to their father, because the father is about to die and he basically is not of sound mind. He's sick. But the father realizes that, Esau, doesn't really seem to, something's not right, in the story. He realizes that something's not right, but he blesses Jacob with the birthright, but doesn't give the birthright to the rightful heir, which is Esau. Okay, this is the rightful heir. And so it's funny because, as TD Jakes is giving this sermon, he's all about Jacob. He's like, Jacob is, Jacob, this was Jacob's birthright, basically. That's basically what he was saying. He was like, Esau was not supposed to come out first. And that's why, I guess he was insinuating from what I took from it. He was insinuating that, that's the reason why he grabbed onto Esau's heel. He grabbed onto Esau's heel because he wasn't supposed to come out first. When clearly the heel signifies the weakness. I wouldn't even say it's a weakness, because your nature is not weakness. We're always taught that our nature here in the Matrix is a weakness. No, it's a aspect of you that's just as important as spirituality, that they wish were not equal, but it's equal. And so when you look at religion, especially religion, really, talks against your nature. It talks against gratification of the body and so forth. And I'm going to get into that in my next video, actually. But T.D. Jakes really is just about, Jacob, and, saying that, and it's funny because just after he speaks about, Esau actually not supposed to come out first or whatever, like he shouldn't have, gotten the birthright, which he didn't, but, just insinuating that, oh, he's for Jacob. Then he starts talking about his white brother and sisters in the congregation. He's like, basically like a shout out to my white brothers and sisters and my Latino brothers and sisters. And that's fine to have a shout out to, people of other races. That's fine. But in the context of this, it was like he was putting white people above black people. And this black people make up the majority of his congregation. And so it was a total disrespect on the low, I should say. But one thing about me, nothing really gets past my third eye at this point. Nothing gets past my third eye. And it was really quite disgusting. It was really quite disgusting how he was talking about how Rebecca, their mother, should be glorified. When in fact, she actually was a part of the plan to actually, steal the birthright from Esau, it was, and that's another thing, like the text that T.D. Jakes actually covered, he didn't say, okay, let's go to Genesis chapter 27. He stayed in chapter 25. I think it was chapter 25, 19 through 34. And so that really just kind of covers the selling of the birthright. But as far as the plan to steal the birthright, he doesn't really focus on that. T.D. Jakes doesn't focus on it. So, T.D. Jakes is really disappointed me. I was really, really saddened by someone that I was conditioned to, look up to and honor, or whatever the case is, and that to actually take this Bible and take this story and to actually, mold it and shape it to where it makes white people look better than black people. It was really sad. And the fact that he did not disclose what happened in the entire story and how Esau's own mother actually plotted against him. And, how they actually lied to the father, basically, so they could give the birthright to Jacob instead of Esau. This was sick. This was sickening. And so really going back to my video when I did on false prophets, it really goes to show that people are paid off by Rome, such as T.D. Jakes, to basically lead sheep to the slaughterhouse, to intentionally deceive and destroy, and to give falsities. And, because one point I want to make here is that, the sheeple, right? We don't really have time to read the Bible, do we? We have to work, and we have to shop, and we have to, cook, and we have to clean, and we have to do so many different things in the matrix just to basically make a living, right? That we don't really have time to read the Bible. So we have to have someone read the Bible to us, right? So when we have people like T.D. Snakes read us portions of the Bible and not give the totality of the story, and then put a very biased, if you will, perspective to this story, it is quite sick and disgusting. It's quite sick and disgusting. It really was a slight against black people. Like, he started talking about how basically he was insinuating that black people are all about instant gratification, and I guess basically that's insinuating that whites, they have more wealth because black people are just about the here and now and that type of thing. There's always exceptions, but in a way, to a certain extent, on a collective sense, I do agree. I do agree. But why? See, this channel is about reaching higher taxonomies of knowledge. It is about going from judgment, which is what, to why and how. And so the black population is targeted purposely targeted to sell out their birthright, to actually get instant gratification. Just look at our music, right? This is a subconscious program. When you listen to music, can you recall all the lyrics? You don't recall all the lyrics, do you, when you're listening to your music? If I say, you know, that song that you were listening to in the radio the other day, can you tell me the lyrics word for word? Most people cannot tell you. So that means that you're being subliminally and subconsciously programmed. So if I put you into a slower brainwave state, you can actually retrieve all the words that are coming from that song. That's sick. But you, the conscious ego, you don't have the mental capacity to remember all the words of every song that you've listened to. And so since you don't have the capacity to do that, you are being programmed at the subconscious level. So when black people are listening to their music with Gucci and Prada and Christian Louis Vuitton and shit like that, right? You're not talking about getting stocks and bonds. Are you talking about stocks and bonds in these songs? Are you talking about, you know, saving your money and that type of thing, paying off your credit cards and shit like that? Are you? Are you putting things in songs for black people to learn about money and making money besides selling drugs and fucking hoes and pimping hoes? No. I don't really hear you giving those things about, you know, those important lessons that blacks need to know so they can save their money. All you're talking about is cars and houses and, you know, and Prada and Gucci. So since you can't recall every word that you're listening to in these songs, you are purposely at the subconscious level actually taking away the free will of an individual and pumping them full of bullshit through your music so they can just focus on things instead of what makes things. So you totally bypass what you would call the, frontal cortex, right? The frontal lobe, and you're going into the temporal lobe. And when things go into your temporal lobe, you don't catch everything. You don't catch everything. So things are going into your mind that you don't even consciously know as an ego. Gucci and Prada and shit. But T.D. Jakes, okay, he was like, oh, you know, and, you know, people, you know, they don't care about their money and this, that, and the other. And they want instant gratification like Esau, who sold his birthright out for, you know, a bowl of stew. Really, T.D. Jakes? I want to have an interview with T.D. Jakes. It would be so interesting. How much money did you get to sell out your congregation of black Jews, T.D. Jakes? How much? Is that something that you want to disclose and talk about? But you want to talk about Esau and how he just threw away his birthright on a pot of stew, on a bowl of stew. That's disgusting. That's disgusting, and you will answer for it. Because when you make deals with the devil, there's always something attached to it. And you will get your just due. So, you know, for the most part, I just really wanted to focus on, you know, this sermon of T.D. Jakes or what have you. I'm going to put the link in the description of the video, just so you can go ahead and watch it for yourself. But it is downright appalling. He totally bypasses what happens in terms of, you know, Rebecca and I think his name Rebecca, right? The mother, and how Jacob actually concocted this plan so they could take the money, basically. And also, and not only that, but he doesn't even talk about the fact that when Esau got wind of what happened, Jacob was very afraid and tried to actually bribe his brother with money so he and his family wouldn't get killed. Why did Bishop T.D. Jakes bypass all of that? Did he know that we didn't have time to read the book of Genesis, the part about Jacob and Esau, because we were slaving in the Matrix for a fucking, what you would call, red pot of stew? Huh? Maybe he knew that. Maybe he knew that. So, you know, I want you to beware of people, you know, giving you these spiritual doctrines and things like that, people talking to you about, you know, what's in the Bible, reading portions of it to you, whatever the case is. Be careful. You know, I'm not saying that you have time to do that stuff, because before I actually, you know, walked away from thousands of dollars at one point and, you know, just, you know, gave up my jobs, whatever the case is, to follow the conscious movement, right? I didn't really have time either. But when I really took time to look at the book and read the book, I thought to myself, this is disgusting. You know, and so you don't want people telling you anything. And I have lived my whole life with my earthly masters bringing me to false prophets who are telling me bullshit. And it's disgusting. And it's time for the one who's actually responsible for the system to actually be brought to judgment, to God's judgment. Because although judgment is a lower taxonomy of knowledge, because God has higher taxonomies, then she is the only one who can judge. Okay, that's right. So, anywho, guys, you know, thanks for watching or what have you. Like I said, please check out the sermon for T.D. Jakes on Esau and Jacob or whatnot. But please stay, you know, please stay abreast and stay, I guess what you would say, knowledgeable, so you don't fall victim of people like T.D. snakes. All right. Thanks, guys. I'll see you in my next video.